An al-Qaeda ringleader captured. Pakistan arrests September 11th plotter Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and says he'll be extradited to the United States. Turkey's parliament says no to basing U.S. troops on its territory. Iraq begins destroying its missiles. The White House says it's not enough. And flag flap, opposing views on war and patriotism on one American campus.
This is the CBS Evening News with Russ Mitchell.
And good evening. It has been a day of major developments overseas. Here's the latest. Pakistan announced the arrest of the alleged mastermind of the 9/11 attacks in America. The Turkish parliament failed to approve the deployment of U.S. troops. And Iraq destroyed 4 of the missiles that exceed UN limits. We begin our coverage this evening with Jim Stewart in Washington and the latest on the arrest of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed.
Mohammed always did like to travel first class, and he had stayed at this upscale Rawalpindi home just before his capture. The man on the right, a radical Pakistani named Abdul Qaddus, who owned the house, was also arrested. Unlike the capture of his sidekick, Ramzi bin al-Shibh, last September, who was nabbed after a long gun battle, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed went quietly. Officials said no shots were fired during this capture and that Mohammed appears in good health. That's important because the 37-year-old al-Qaeda executive, who was educated in North Carolina and speaks perfect English, is expected to undergo a long and thorough interrogation. There's potentially much to be learned. It was Mohammed, after all, who plotted with his nephew Ramzi Youssef, the man who first tried to blow up the World Trade Center in 1993, to plant bombs aboard U.S. aircraft in Asia. It was Mohammed, officials believe, who later dreamed up the idea of crashing hijacked jets into the World Trade Center. It was Mohammed who approved the selection of the 9/11 hijackers, Mohammed who signed off on a rash of bombings in Asia and the Middle East after 9/11, and Mohammed who knows the who, what, where, and when of most future al-Qaeda plans.
In many ways, I would think Americans might be safer today because we have him than if we had bin Laden himself.
In fact, catching Mohammed, one official suggested, was like cutting al-Qaeda's hands off. Osama bin Laden and his deputy, Egyptian Dr. Ayman Zawahiri, may be the money and the brains behind al-Qaeda, but it was Khalid Sheikh Mohammed who turned it all into bombs. The question now is, what does Mohammed know about the whereabouts of his boss? He may know plenty, but it's also likely that Osama bin Laden listens to the news as well, U.S. officials suggest, and in their words, has probably already packed his bags. Russ?
Jim Stewart in Washington. Thanks a lot. A major defeat for the